This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi Sai, welcome everyone. How's everybody doing today? Okay, so today is what? Erev Shabbos Haggadol. So Shabbos is called Shabbos Haggadol. In fact, there are many reasons why it's called Shabbos Haggadol. There's a sefer written that gives 100 reasons why that this Shabbos is called Shabbos Haggadol. We're only going to give 77 now. Oh. Just joking, relax, okay? We're going to give a couple. The very interesting one is was given by Rashi in the Sefer HaPardes. We know one of the names for Yom Kippur is Yom Kippur is called Yom Haggadol, the Great Day. It's called the Great Day. Why is it called the Great Day? One of the reasons it's called the Great Day is it's a very tough day. You're fasting, you're sitting in shul all day, and somehow the clock on Yom Kippur moves much slower than any other day of the year, right? You know, it's 2 o'clock, and you say, oh, it must be 3 o'clock, and it's 2:01, right? So it seems like a really long day. Well, by the same token, says Rashi, Shabbos Haggadol, you sit there in the shul, and the rabbi spoke, he said, he must have been going on for an hour and a half already, and you look at the clock, and you know, it's only 2 minutes. So too the day seems extremely long. So that's one of the reasons Rashi says it's called Shabbos Haggadol. It seems like the Shabbos will never end. But we're going to offer a new explanation why it's called Shabbos Haggadol. Mr. Caro, you want to hear a good joke?
If you're ready for it.
I'm definitely ready. Okay. So you know the guy. The guy tells his wife, this year I'm going to for sure help out for Pesach. Just give me any job and I'll do it. So he says, look, don't take this the wrong way, but really the best help you could give me is get out of the house, stay out of my hair, and I'll let you know when to come back. You go out, and that's the biggest help you could get me. So the guy leaves the house. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He goes to the bakery. He buys himself a coffee. He goes into the Beis Medrash. He doesn't even know what to do over there. He picks up the Gemara. He's holding it upside down. He's like, what am I supposed to do over there? And he's twiddling his thumbs, he's checking his phone, he's looking at the news, he checked the same news on 90 different websites, the exact same thing. Anyway, so he, after 3 hours, his wife hears him meandering back to the house. She says, I thought I told you, this is the biggest help, just stay out. He says, the whole day you need me to help you?
Very good.
Okay, good audience here. So I'll give you
a lot of truth to it.
So anyway, well, if you like that one, the guy who calls his boss, and he says, boss, I'd like to take off 2 days before Yom Tov to help my wife. His boss says, nothing doing, you got to work right up to Yom Tov. He says, boss, I knew I could count on you. So anyway, we want to talk about Shabbos Haggadol. Shabbos Haggadol. What does the word Gadol mean?
Great,
big,
large.
Great, large. But we know we use the word Gadol to describe the Ribbon Shalom. We say in Shemona Esrei, Hakel, Haggadol, Hagibar, V'Hanar. So what do we mean when we say Hashem is Gadol? He's big, he's tall, he's large, he's great.
He's strong.
Well, what does that mean, Hakel, Haggadol?
He's strong.
So he's strong, but then we say Hagibar, right? So interesting, at the end of the Ruach Chaim, which is a commentary of Chaim Volozhin on Pirkei Avos, there's a commentary on the first bracha of Shemona Esrei by the son of the Gra, Rabbi Avraham ben Hagra. And Rabbi Avraham ben Hagra is bothered by this question, what does Gadol mean? And he says an amazing thing, which when I heard I say, I can't believe I never do this. You know what it means? The bracha in Shemona Esrei itself tells you what it means. How many praises of Hashem do we say? 4. Hakel, Haggadol, Hagibar, V'Hanoira. Then the bracha goes on to explain those 4 words. Hakel. What does Hakel mean? Elyon. That's what we say, Kel Elyon. Right? We say Hakel, Haggadol, Hagibar, V'Hanoira. Kel, Elyon. What's the next shvach? Haggadol. You know what Haggadol is? Goimel Chasadim Tovim. You know what Hagibar is? You know what Hashem's might is? That he's Koinei Hakal. He created everything, and he owns everything. And Hanoira, he's awesome that he could still remember the chesed of our forefathers. In other words, the the Anshe Knesset Hagdara are translating in the bracha what the four words mean. Hakel, Haggadol, Hagibar, Hanoira. That Kel means Kel Elyon. That's why it repeats the word Kel again. Kel is Elyon. Gadol is Goimel, Chasadim, Tovim. Okay, let me give you an example of this, because throughout Tanakh, whenever the Torah says the word Gadol, it means Goimel, Chasadim, Tovim. So let's go to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu Parsha Shemais. In Parak Beis Pasuk Yud Aleph, the pasuk says, "Vayigdal Moshe." Moshe became a Gadol. What are the next words? Vayetze el echav vayar b'sivloisam. He went out to his brothers and he saw their suffering. Rashi says, "Nasan einav v'libay liyos meitzar alehem." He put his eyes and heart to be pained over them. Meaning Gadol means to be interested in the welfare of other people. That the definition of Gadol means to overcome human self-centeredness and selfishness, meaning the typical human nature is to be concerned only for oneself, and Gadol means to include other people. Goimel chasadim tovim. I'll give you another example. Yitzchak Avinu. Vayizra Yitzchak ba'aretz hahi, vayimtza b'shana hahi mea sha'arim, vayivarcheu Hashem. Yitzchak planted, and he found mea sha'arim. And Rashi says he found 100 times more than he estimated. So Rashi's bothered. Why did he estimate to begin with? Right? What was it? It's tax season. Why did Yitzchak Avinu estimate? What did he make an estimation for? Says Rashi, for Meiser. Yitzchak needed to know how much Meiser to give, so he estimated. So again, Vayizra Yitzchak ba'aretz hahi, vayimtza b'shana hahi mea sha'arim, vayivarcheu Hashem. So right after it says that Yitzchak estimated for tzedakah, what are the next words? Vayigdal ha'ish. He became a Gadol. Because if Yitzchak is estimating to give tzedakah, to do chesed, that is the definition of a Gadol. Okay. Parshas Va'eschanan. What's the tefillah of Moshe Rabbeinu? Hashem Elokim, Ata hachiloisa laharois es avdecha es Gadlacha. God, you have began to show your servant Gadlacha, your greatness. Rashi says Gadlacha, midas tuvcha, your attribute of goodness, meaning goimel chasadim tovim. Why? Because the definition of a Gadol means that someone who is able to reach beyond their focus, their own ego, and be concerned for the welfare of others. Rachemna Hashem Elokeinu al Yisrael Amecha v'al Yishalayim Yirecha v'yaltzia Mishkan Kvodecha v'yamachos Beis Mishrecha v'yal Habayis Haggadol. The Beis Hamikdash is called the Bayis Gadol. It's a big house. Wow, that's such a accurate, very descriptive term, adjective for the Beis Hamikdash. It's a big house. Imagine you took your family to the White House. You ask, what do you see? I see a big house.
You know what big houses refer to generally? Prison.
A jail.
It's a big house.
Why is the Beis Hamikdash called a big house? So I saw in the Sefer Kamotzei Shala Rav on Sukkos, that the Gemara says the entire world, the entire humanity is sustained in the merit of karbanos. Meaning, in essence, the Beis Hamikdash is the source of all blessing for the world. All shefa comes through the medium of the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash is called Bayis Haggadol. Why? Because there's no goimel chasad, there's no greater source of chesed than the Machon Maggid Harakiah. That's the portal through which God sends down all bracha to the world. I'll give you another example. Now let's go to Mishnah. Villages are permitted to lay in the Megillah when? On the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, the 14th. Kfarim, right? But ayarois gedolos, the big cities, they have to read it on the 14th. So in the Mishnah in Megillah Daf Hey says, what's an ir gedola? Kol sheyesh ba asara batlanim. A city that has 10 batlanim. Now what's a batlan? Batlan is not what your mashgiach said. Don't be, you're going to become a batlan.
Not learning.
You're learning.
Work.
Rashi says, guys who That's right. Batlanim are not the guys who go to the Kiddush club. Batlanim, says Rashi, are 10 people that sit in the shul all day, v'nizoynim mishal tzibor, and they're supported by the tzibor. The definition of a big city is a city that is mefarnes talmidei chachamim. Even if it has 30 people in the city, if they're mefarnes 10 people, it's a big city.
The people are learning, so they're giving
learning,
them support.
so they're giving them
Why
support.
they call them Batlanim? It's such a negative.
Batlanim means they're batal from work.
I mean,
Mashen Kane.
Not what people associate.
Well, it's
with
become more of a colloquial expression.
negative.
Right, a negative expression. On the other hand, you could have a city with 1 million people, but if they're not mefarnes others, if they're not goyim chasam tana, it's an ir katana. So again, you see, the definition of Gadol is goyim chasadim tovim. Many years ago, do you know Rabbi Gans from Hillcrest? The mezuzah doctor.
Sure,
Okay.
much Gans. Sure.
Yeah. So, he showed me another example. The Gemara about Metzia. Gemara says, Metzias benoi ubitoi haktanim harei elu shalai. If you have a kid and he finds something, whatever he finds, you own. But Metzias benoi ubitoi hagedolim, an adult kid, the halacha is harei elu shalahen. They're able to keep their own metzias, right? So if you have a little kid and they find something, you're the owner. If you have a big kid and they find something, then they're the owner. Well, it says the Gemara about Metzia, Daf Yud Beis Amar Beis. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Loi Gadol, Gadol Mamish. V'loi Katan, Katan Mamish. Gadol v'samach al Shulchan Aviv is a Gadol. Is a Katan. A Gadol who's dependent on his father for support is a Katan. So the kid could be 19 years old. If the father's still paying for his popcorn, then he's a Katan. Even an adult who's dependent on his father is a Katan. But a Katan, ve'enoi soimech al Shulchan Aviv, is a Gadol. So what's the definition of a Gadol? A Gadol means someone who is not dependent on being a recipient. A Katan is someone who has to be a taker. A Gadol is someone who has the capacity to give.
So Batlan is not a Gadol?
I mean, he could be a Gadol, but in terms of the city itself is an Ir Gedola if it's able to provide, and it's Ir Katan is not able to provide.
What about Mordechai? I think in the
Ki Mordechai Yehudi Mishnah L'Machazah V'Gadol Yehudim.
And he's the one that raised taxes.
No, Achashverosh raised the taxes. Is there? You want to get a Rashi? Or you want to get a Megillah?
I was Secretary of the Treasury.
Behind you, no, that doesn't have a Rashi.
This one doesn't. No, it doesn't have on the Megillah.
this one. Oh, it doesn't have it.
Doesn't have a Megillah.
I don't know.
Over there. Okay,
I don't know.
we'll get it, but we'll take a look. Finally.
Okay.
The Vilna Gaon. It's brought down in the Sefer Har Tzvi on Chumash. Why is the sun in the Torah called Ma'ar Haggadol, and the moon is called Ma'ar HaKatan? Well, the moon is only a recipient of the light of others, so it reflects the light of others. So Mamela, the moon is called what? Ma'ar HaKatan. The sun is the source of all light. It's a source of power, energy, warmth. The sun is the great benefactor, so the sun is called the Ma'ar HaGadol. Okay, one more example, because I can tell you just want one more, and that is Pasuk in Yehoshua, Perek Yudalid, Pasuk Tezvav. Ha'adam Hagadol Ba'anakim. The man, the giant among giants. What do we call Avraham Avinu? Thank you. A Gadol. Let's look at Rashi here. Do-do-do. Rashi doesn't say.
Is it reading Matanos Levyonim?
He instituted Matanos Levyonim.
Yeah.
Well, based on what we're saying, it would have to have, it would have to mean something like that.
Yeah. Right.
So the pasuk in Yeshua says, Ha'adam Haggadol ba'anakim. The man, the great man among giants. Well, who does that refer to? Rashi says it's referring to Avraham Avinu. So how are we referring to Avraham Avinu? A Gadol. Why is Avraham Avinu? He's the only one in Tanakh who's called the Gadol.
He's called Ish Chesed, no?
Why? Because Avraham Titein Chesed li Avraham, right? Titein Chesed li Avraham. Avraham Avinu was the great Machnas Oreach. Avraham Avinu was a paragon of Chesed, and therefore the Shem Mishmo writes in Parsha Mitzayra. That's Avraham Avinu fit the bill of. He was the exact dictionary definition of Gadol. And the truth is, anybody who we consider a Gadol, your Gadol, my Gadol, his Gadol, whether Hasidish, Litvish, whatever you associate with, whoever you consider a Gadol, one of their primary characteristics is their ability and their chesed to other people. But here's the question. Is that their main characteristic? In other words, is the main description of a Gadol Goyma Chasadim Tovim? I mean, really, when we refer to a Gadol, the main quality of the Gadol is Limud HaTorah, their Torah knowledge. Certainly, Goyma Chasadim Tovim is a major quality and an essential quality, but you wouldn't say that's the overriding quality of being a Gadol. Is that what a Gadol is?
So you had a Gadol who's Baki b'Torah, Baki b'Shas, but he didn't do any Chesed. Would he still have the title of Gadol?
No, maybe not, but vice versa, certainly not. Vice versa, certainly not.
Who doesn't know Aleph Beis?
You can't call him a Gadol, you could call him a Bal Chesed, but would you call him a Gadol? It's very interesting. After Berachas HaTorah, we say the first Mishnah in Peah, Elu Dvarim Sha'adam Achal Peraseim Ba'olam Hazeh. That for the following mitzvahs, not only does one receive reward in the world to come, but you get, the perks in Olam Hazeh, right? Elu Dvarim Sha'adam Achal Peraseim Ba'olam Hazeh, V'hakeren Kayem Esoi La'olam Haba. So the question is, why do you get peiros Ba'olam Hazeh? I thought Schara B'hayama Leka. There ain't no reward in this world. So why would you get peiros for certain mitzvahs? So the Rambam writes, that's right, Schara b'hayam aleka. Why? Because when you put on tefillin, who are you doing something for? God. So you're doing something for God, God will reward you in His currency in Olam Haba. But there's nothing in this world. But when you have mitzvahs ben adam l'chaveroi, so you're benefiting people in this world, for those things you get perks in this world. And that's why all the mitzvahs mentioned there are ben adam l'chaveroi. Hachnasas kala, bikor choylem, hachnasas orchim, gmos chasadim, lavayas hames.
Aren't you able to do this because Hashem gives you schar for the things that you did to enable you to do chesed? If Hashem didn't give you the schar to enable you to do the chesed, your ability to do chesed would be limited.
Okay, but still there's a rule that you don't get reward in this world. But the Rambam says that only applies to Ben Adam Lamakayim. Ben Adam Lachavera, if you benefit people in this world, you get perks in this world as well. Well, the question is, Fektor B'chanan Wasserman, Hashem Yimkam Damai, he says, wait a second, that there is a mitzvah there that is not Ben Adam Lachavera. V'Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam. So if the only way to get schar in this world is ben adam l'chaveroi, then why would you get schar for Talmud Torah in this world? Talmud Torah in this world is ben adam la'amakam. Who are you benefiting in this world by sitting and learning Gemara? You're not benefiting anyone in this world. So why do you get reward in this world? Says Rabbi Chanan, it's a big error, it's a big mistake. The greatest chesed that you could do to mankind in this world is by learning Torah. Because when you learn Torah, you're benefiting the entire world. Because the entire existence of the world is dependent on Talmud Torah. If not for the mitzvah of Yom V'Alayla, Gisva Yom V'Alayla, Chukah Shamayim V'Aretz, L'Samti. If there would be a moment that there was no Torah learning in the world would cease to exist. So basically, by you learning Torah, you're pumping vitality into the entire world. Chaim Volozhiner writes, the reason why God created time zones, so that when the Jews in Israel are going to sleep, we're just getting going in the morning. This way, someone's always pumping the heart of the world. We say in Sim Shalom, we say about the Torah. The Torah is Torah's Chaim. The Torah is a Torah's Chaim. How is a Torah's Chaim? Because literally, Torah pumps vitality into the entire world.
So we say the Avos Chesed, right?
Well, yeah, that's something else. But somebody who learns is actually upholding the whole world. So what do we call a great tzaddik, a great Talmud Chacham who's involved in Limud HaTorah? He's called a Gadol. Because literally that is the greatest example of Goy Mel Chasadim Tovim, the greatest chesed in the world. People have a mistake. They say, oh, he's just sitting and learning. What's he doing? He's a batlan, He's just wasting time. He's a bench warmer. I hate that expression. It's apikarsis. A bench warmer. You know how to say that? It's mamish apikarsis. Bench warmer. Would you say about a doctor who's saving lives, he's a bench warmer? Chas v'shalom. So the person who learns Torah is upholding the whole world. He's the greatest benefactor. Anyway, that's the midah of gadlus. That the purpose of the world is to be able to benefit other people. In fact, Rav Chaim Volozhiner in the Hakdama the Nefesh HaChaim, it says in the introduction to Nefesh HaChaim, it says that the sons of Rav Chaim Volozhiner said that their father would always tell them, "V'koi haya devarai elai tamid." They always would tell me the following. Because they would say, Rav Chaim Volozhiner would always tell us, "Shazek kol ha'adam." This is the entirety of man. Lo la'atzmai nivra. Man was not created for himself. Rak lahayol la'achrini b'chol asher yimsa b'koichei lasis. Rather, to help others as much as one possibly can. It's interesting. If you look in the beginning of Vayeshev, turn to the beginning of Vayeshev. In the beginning of Vayeshev, we find, where is Yosef? Yosef's on the top of the world. He's learning with his father. He's the Ben Zekunim. Yaakov is teaching him Zekunim, Zraim, Kadshim, Nashim, Yeshuais, Mayed, teaching him 5 books of the Mishnayos. Yosef's wearing the royal cloak. He's on top of the world. By the end of the Parsha, he's wallowing in jail. He's in he's with the drugs of society, the dregs. He's on the bottom of the world.
Drugs.
He's gone Meyigra Rama from the highest pinnacle to he's wallowing in jail. Parshas Miketz, he starts off lowest of low. He's wallowing in jail, but then the Parsha, he's king of the world. So what happened there? How do you account for the dramatic difference?
He did chesed while he was in jail, so they got him out.
So maybe some of you heard me say this. Yeah, some of you heard me say this. We have these 2 rivers in Eretz Yisrael. You have 2 bodies of water in Eretz Yisrael. You have the Galilee and the Yam HaMelech. The Galilee, it's full of life. It's teeming with fish. It's teeming with fauna. It's lush. It's fertile. It's Peiros Genosar. And the Yam HaMelech is Kishmoi Kenhu. It's dead like a doorknob. Even bacteria, there's a whole machlokes. Could bacteria survive in the waters of the Yam HaMelech? The strange thing is they're both fed from the same water source. They're both fed from the Yarden. So how do you account for the dramatic difference that the Yam Kinneret is lush, is fertile, is beautiful fruits, and the Yam HaMelech is dead. You can't even bacteria can't survive. This is what's called the Mashal Hayadua. It's like a parable. So what's the parable? The parable is like this. There's a Gemara Nedarim. The Gemara Nedarim says, Arba Chashuvim Kameis. There are 4 people who are considered like they're dead. Who remembers who they are? An Ani, a poor man.
Saras.
A Mitzaira, someone as Saras.
Blind.
Suma, a blind person. Umi Shein Leibanim, and someone who doesn't have children. So the simple meaning of that Gemara is that there are 4 people in this world whose situation in life is so compromised that they suffer and they're not really living life to the fullest. If you can't see the colors of the world, you're not fully alive. If you don't have the family, you're not. If someone is suffering, they're not fully alive. But Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says, no, that can't be the Pshat in the Gemara, because we all know that a life, even of Yisurim, is much, much, much greater than the alternative. David HaMelech says, Yasar Yisrani Ka. God, you could afflict me. But don't take me out of this world. Life is better than the alternative. Says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, there's a common denominator between these four people. You know what the common denominator is? They're not able to give. Because if you're an ani, you have no resources to give. And if you're a blind person, if you can't see what someone else needs, your ability to give is compromised. Like Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayetze Lechav, Vayar b'Siv Loisam. He saw there. You need to see to give. A Mitzvah is in isolation. He can't be associated with other people. He can't give. Mishain Labanim doesn't have to whom to give. So therefore, the definition of life, definition of being a chai, is the ability to give. If you don't have the ability to give, then you're not living life to its fullest. That's the definition of life. By the way, we could say Reb Shimon Shkop, in his Hakdama to the Shari Yosher, Shimon Shkop was one of the great all-time Talmudic scholars in terms of the Lumdus of Shas. He wrote 2 volumes, Shari Yosher. So in his Hakdama, he talks about the concept of ani, me. He says everybody has the ani, the ego. The question is, who does your ani include? To some people, their ani is only them. And they're very small. Some people, their ani includes their family, their children, their parents. And great, great people, their ani includes the whole world, all of mankind, all of Klal Yisrael. And such a person, what would we call? A Gadol. Because why are they called a Gadol? Their ani encompasses all of mankind. So I thought to say, one of the names of the Rebbeinu Shalom is Ani. Ani v'hoy Hoshiana. Right. Why is God's name Ani? Maybe because
37th.
Right, the 37th. And it's the first in the Hoshanas. He says, maybe we could say that God is the definition of the ultimate Ani, whose Ani includes all of mankind. That's why Hashem's name is Ani. Let's add. Remember a guy named Cain? Cain, the world wasn't big enough for him. To split him and his brother, the world wasn't big enough. So he knocks off his brother, and he does tshuva, and God puts a sign on Cain's forehead. What sign does he put on him?
Hey.
A letter. Which letter? The Ois Vav.
Oh.
Why the Ois Vav? What's Pshan the Ois Vav? Says Rabbi Meir Shapiro, when a person takes egocentricity to the extreme, they could kill someone because the world's not big enough for 2 people. What Hashem was saying is, no, Cain, what you're lacking is the Vav HaChibur. The Vav is and other people. You can't your ani cannot only include yourself. You have to understand, to be mitzaref, the Ois Vav. How do you say a successful person in Hebrew?
Bashir.
With an aleph, I think, right? How do you say successful person? Matzliach. Should say ish tzelecha. Matzliach is causative. Matzliach literally means to give success to others. Yeah. Because in the Torah definition of success, it's not what's in your account, it's not what you do, it's if you're interested in making other people successful. So Hatzlach is called ish matzliach. Therefore, the beginning of Parshas Vayeshev, Yosef, and I heard this from a great rabbi, Rabbi Isaac Bernstein, in the beginning of Vayeshev, Yosef's going around saying, hey, Herzechain, you want to hear what I'm dreaming about? You want to hear what my aspirations are? You want to hear how you're going to be bowing down to me? That's a one-way ticket to failure. And Yosef goes from the highest pinnacle, and he's wallowing in jail. And then, all of a sudden, in Parshas Miketz, Yosef becomes the Ish Matzliach. That's the first time that expression appears. Because he's going to the Saramashkim. What are you dreaming about? What are your hopes? What are your aspirations? Yosef learned the lesson. By the way, there are only 2 people in Tanakh called Tzaddik. Noach and Yosef. The Medrash says, what do they have in common? They both fed the whole world. Noach supported all of mankind and the animals and the teva. Yosef, hu hamashvir l'chol am haaretz. So you say, what do you mean? God is also called a tzaddik. Tzaddik Hashem b'chol derachav. What's the pasuk before? Paiseach es yadecha u'masbiya l'chol chai rotzain. Tzaddik Hashem b'chol derachav. So Yosef goes from the depths of with the dregs of society, he becomes the ish matzliach, and he becomes the ish tzaddik, and now he's sitting at the pinnacle of the world. Well, Mar of Rabbi say, Herzachain. You have two rivers in Eretz Yisrael. You have the Kinneret. The Kinneret.
It's not a river. You mean?
Yeah, two bodies of water. So it takes the water of the Yarden. It's makabel, but then it's a nice thing. It feeds it out. If it's a nice thing, it's alive, and it's lush, and it's fertile, and it produces beautiful fruits, and it's the most beautiful region of Eretz Yisrael. Yam HaMelech
Doesn't feed anything. Just takes
just
it in.
collects, and it stops right there. And therefore, it's Kishmai Kenhu. It's Chashuv Kames. It's Mam Kadetzi.
Just provide minerals.
And products, yeah. But as a body of water, it's Chashuv Kames. Why? Because the Gemara says, Arba Chashuvim Kames. So, here we have Shabbos Haggadol. Why is it called Shabbos Haggadol? So, I want to suggest, Chassam Sofer says, the upcoming Yom Tif, the Kedusha of an upcoming Yom Tif, is always included in the previous Shabbos. The Shabbos is Mashpia Kedusha to the upcoming days of the week. There's an expression in the Zohar called Berchosa and Dela'ela Vesata B'Shabbata Talia. Shabbos is what L'chu El L'kra Shabbos L'chu V'ne'elcha Kihi M'kar HaBracha. And therefore, the greatest Yom Tif we have, with the most mitzvahs, the night of Seder, where Makayim 64 mitzvahs is such a holy mitzvah, and who's mashpia that Kedusha on the Yom Tif? It's the Shabbos. So therefore we like to suggest that the Shabbos before is called Shabbos Haggadol. This is the Shabbos which is a great benefactor, and the gift that it gives Klal Yisrael is the gift of the upcoming Yom Tif of Pesach, Haba Aleinu Le Tailah.
Amen.
That's
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.